Welcome to Encountering the Divine. In this series, we explore the book of Job, a story that doesn't give easy answers, but invites us into honest faith, not only in moments of clarity, but in suffering, waiting, and perseverance. Wherever you find yourself today, this is an invitation to encounter God in the middle of real life.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Encountering the Divine. And I pray today that will be the reality of our time together. We will together encounter the divine. There's nothing more profound, nothing more emotionally, spiritually, physically fulfilling than having a genuine encounter with God. And we encounter Him primarily through this Word, through the Bible, through the Scriptures, although we encounter Him many other levels. Last night we had our regular prayer gathering, and it was a time of encountering God through worship and prayer. The presence of God was absolutely amazing. But yet, in all of the various settings and various means of encountering Him, whether it be in nature, sitting by a stream, sitting on a mountain peak, hunting, fishing, whatever it is, a walk through some sacred space, time in a park. We can encounter God in so many levels, but yet, for me, the Word trumps it all. As I was driving in this morning, I was listening to Psalm 91, and just, wow, it's like just the opening verses is enough to stimulate your thoughts for hours. It's incredible. And so we're picking up today in Job. Again, we're in the 16th lesson of 20 that I've mapped out. And wow, I was telling the prayer gathering last night, I don't remember having a more powerful and profound encounter with the Word than I've had through this book. To see theology emerging, to see stuff coming out of in its fresh, creative language being formed in the Scriptures. This journey through Job has been fascinating for me, and I trust it's been fascinating for you as well. Now, every lesson has its highs and lows. It's, times when you can get caught up in things that are, a little maybe hard to wrap your mind around, and there's a little space of that in today's lesson. But for the most part, I think you're going to enjoy this lesson 16. Here, I've just entitled this with Job's own words, I know my Redeemer lives. Job is emerging from this place of darkness, and you can almost see him, although he's lost everything. Everything has been so stripped away. Job has nothing. He's barely a soul, merely being trapped right now by the bare, his body is barely functioning enough to trap his soul, if I could say it that way. His life is ebbing away before him. He has nothing left. His relationships have failed him on earth. This man has nothing. I remember being with my dad about 6 years ago when he was on his last few days. But he was surrounded with his family. We were trying to do what we could for him, to affirm him, to give validity to his life. But Job has none of that. He has accusers. And yet, out of this place, light shines and hope begins to emerge. And you see, we discover here that you don't have to have a fully formed theology to have hope. There's just that clinging to God is enough to bring forth hope from the chaos. In Job 19, verse 23 to 26, let's read it together. Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. Oh, that with an iron pen and lead they were graven in the rock forever. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and at last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, then from my flesh I shall see God. Now, we won't dwell upon that part here that, at last he will stand upon the earth. He's speaking here like wow, there's so much prophecy and revelation in this scripture. We can't cover it all. But sticking with what's before us and the topic before us, this is one of the greatest statements of faith in the entire Bible. And yet it's been spoken by someone who doesn't have, other theological explanations or other people who have helped formulate and frame a theological form for him. And so this is where it's just emerging. It's coming up from the dust, if you would. And from that dark place of Job, Job states, I know my Redeemer lives. And we don't have time to parse the Hebrew here. But this word that is used, that is translated out into the Hebrew, that I know that my Redeemer lives, it is emphatic. There is no room for dispute. That's incredible, isn't it? And so this is not hope after the problem is solved, after his wounds are healed and his friends come back and prepare a nice meal for him and say, hey, Job boy, we got this all wrong and we are so sorry. No, this is hope long before any of that occurs. This is a declaration before the testimony of deliverance, right? Here, first point, preserve my words. Job says, I want my words to be preserved. Even though I'm gone from this earth, I want future generations to know that this man Job, although all this horrible stuff happened to him, I want him to know that I arrived at a verdict. Okay? And so that matters to Job. And so he believes his friends have judged him wrong. His reputation has collapsed. He acknowledges all this. His suffering has been interpreted by those around him as guilt. But he wants a permanent record. He wants his record cleared. He wants someone with authority in the courts of heaven, as we referred to last week, to say, here's the evidence. Job was and is a righteous man. Not a perfect man, but he sought to live right. He wants the evidence to be preserved. He wants the court to make the declaration, we find him innocent. That's it. That's what he wants. And so here the whole idea behind the Redeemer, the Gohel, the Hebrew Gohel, is this idea of one who intervenes and rescues or steps in when a family member is vulnerable. This Gohel of the Old Testament could redeem property. He could rescue a relative from poverty. He could avenge bloodshed. He could preserve a family line by, continuing to take his brother's wife and, have a child so that his lineage could continue. There was any number of things that this Gohel could do in the Old Testament Hebrew culture. We have a classic example, of course, in the book of Ruth with Boaz becoming Naomi and Ruth's, Gohel. He redeems their situation, brings them back from the brinks of poverty and disaster. And so Job is here, he's reaching out for someone who will intercede for him, someone who will act as a Gohel, someone who will, redeem and restore what's been lost. And that's why he says, my Redeemer. He uses that term referring to it. He's not simply saying, I want someone to make me feel better. No, he's saying, I need someone to stand up for me. Okay, I need someone to stand at the city gate and stand up for me, argue my case. I can't stand up for myself. I have no means. I have no wherewithal. I don't have the deposit for a lawyer. I can't pay the application fee for the courts to hear my case. I need someone else to stand up for me. And, this text is so powerful for wounded, broken people. As we realize, I'm in a place of desperation. I don't know where to turn. I have no wherewithal. I have no means. I am grasping at straws. I am desperate for someone to intervene for me. And this is where Job is coming from as he cries out. But in the midst of that, the second thing is, or the third thing, he reaches beyond death. He sees his impending death. At this point, I think Job has just acknowledged, I'm dying. Although we know the end of the story, he won't die. He will come back. God will restore him. But at this state, Job is, I think, he's reaching beyond death. And he says, after my skin has thus been destroyed, in verse 26, yet in my flesh I shall see God. And he says, my body may be destroyed, but somehow Job has this emerging hope that he will see God. He's, there's some arguing here. Is Job saying he will see God apart from his body? Or is Job saying he will see God with his bodily format intact? There's some debate among theologians on this. And here, of course, it's not a fully developed New Testament theology of resurrection. At this point, Job is standing on the other side of that. But yet, it's more like a flash of revelation that comes to his soul, to his spirit, and he seizes it for that moment. He doesn't have all the details. He doesn't have the sentence structure even to lay this theology out. But he's got that flash of hope. And the Hebrew text literally reads, and after my skin has been destroyed thus, from my flesh I shall behold God. It's here as he's saying, I will have a physical skin. I will have a bodily existence. But this one is going to be stripped away. And the terms again here that's used is naklaf, which means destroyed, struck down, stripped away, torn away. He's using language that says, like, literally, I know these skin was going to rip the flesh off these bones. There'll be nothing left to me. He's describing absolute, complete bodily ruin. He's saying, there will be nothing left to me. But even after that, okay, after that, I will behold God. He's not looking here, he's not anticipating God coming in healing him. No, he's anticipating walking through the valley of death. But on the other side of that, beholding God. So he says, yet in my flesh. And here's where the big debate begins, of course. After his flesh has been torn from his body, he's been torn apart. Yet he has a new construction on the other side of death. And from in my flesh I shall see God strongly suggests here that Job is anticipating a bodily existence after this experience that he's currently having. So theologians wrestle with that. They beat it around, bat it around. But what we actually see is Job's declaration becomes the foundation for future theologians in the Scripture. And we will look at that. So while current theologians are trying to deconstruct it in some cases and break it apart, and it's all right to dig deep into it, future theologians like the Apostle Paul and John and others came and built upon this. Okay? And so the English Standard Version leans towards this interpretation, the interpretation that we've read to you a few minutes ago. It leans towards a full bodily vindication, where a body is fully intact on the other side of death. And so, verse 27, of course, we read, whom I shall see myself, and my eyes shall behold. So this is intensely bodily descriptive language. He's not speaking spiritual stuff here. He's using physical comparisons. And so again, he says, he uses the term here, hihoha, or I will see, I will behold, I will gaze upon vividly my God. And the word here, Yehoah, for God is one of worship and adoration. So again, it's visionary language. It's encounter language. It's not abstract. It's not just my spirit will be absorbed by the Spirit of God. Oh, no, 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 no. He says, I will behold him with my own eyes. I will gaze vividly upon him. And so Job expects a personal, physical encounter with God on the other side of death. You see, here Job's language exceeds his theology. He doesn't have the proper theological framework. He doesn't have Daniel 12, where Daniel said in verse 2, many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. He doesn't have Isaiah 26:19, your dead shall live, their bodies shall rise. These guys actually built upon Job. Job provided the data and the material upon which others came and gained a clearer explanation and a clearer understanding of God. This is why Job becomes so critical, and his experience is so just absolutely amazing how he emerges this. So Job stands earlier in the stream than any of those. He doesn't see things clearly, but his soul sees enough that he's able to fabricate. Words how does that revelation bring words forth that define and become the framework for resurrection theology? He doesn't have New Testament to lean into. Yet his language reaches far beyond his own theological knowledge. It's incredible, isn't it? And so again, Job reaching beyond death. And so as a result of this, theologians dug deep, and future patriarchs and others and prophets would, I think, muse upon and sit with and wrestle with Job's revelation. And then the Spirit of God would build upon that. The Bible talks about revelation coming line upon line, precept upon precept. That's how it's laid down. And so our theology of resurrection today, if you would, up here, if you go down through the layers all the way to the bottom, you find Job right at the very first page on the stack. Okay? And so Gregory the Great, he saw Job's revelation. He said, this is a testimony to resurrection after bodily decay. Thomas Aquinas treated this passage as profound anticipation of resurrection and the final vision of God's restoration. The New Testament, of course, spoke vividly to this hope. Paul spoke of bodily resurrection and continuity and transformation in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Again, writing to the Philippians, in Philippians 3 and 21, he said, who will transform our lowly bodies? And if John, as he wrote in 1 John 3 and 2, we shall see him as he is. And that's deeply Job-like language, isn't it? And so we know that these future theologians, after Christ had spent his season with them, after they had witnessed the resurrection of Lazarus, after they had witnessed the resurrection of Jesus, after all of that helps formulate and stabilize and bring structure to their theology. After all that, they're still using Job-like language. And so this is what makes Job so fascinating, right? Earlier, Job wanted death. He wanted annihilation. He wanted to be cut off. He wanted out. He was in such pain and turmoil. He cries for that, and we talked about that in earlier lessons. But now he's not crying for annihilation or silence or escape. No, he wants vindication. He wants restoration. He anticipates an encounter with God, new life. It seems as if after all the stuff of this life has been stripped away from Job, and he has nothing left, and he sits in ashes, all of a sudden, he sees so clearly the old purpose for his creation. And he is able to see clearly the God who created him, sustained him, and will give him life through eternity. For us, all the noise, all the busyness, all the clutter, all the stuff clouds our perception of God. And I said that to Edwin today. All the stuff I have around me, even the relationships around me, all that stuff, while it's good and necessary to a certain extent, it clutters and clouds my understanding and my clarity of God. So the least we have around us, the least stuff we gather, yes, while it's important to have relationships and we need to be in community, there even needs to be boundaries around how much of that we have. Because the least of it that we have, the more clearly we see God, the more we lean into Him, right? So Job, here, the fourth point, I know. That's a big declaration. I know. I understand. My mind cannot define it. I cannot write the book on it, but my soul is informing me. I know this will end. I know how God will bring this into its fullness. I know my Redeemer lives. And that's the whole center of this passage. Job comes to that without a fully formed theology. He doesn't have a fully formed theological thesis because, you see, his hope is not anchored in explanation. His hope is anchored in a person. His body may fail, but his Redeemer lives. His friends may misread him, but his Redeemer lives. His words may be buried in pain, but his Redeemer lives, and that's what matters. Finally, seeing God is his great hope. Job continues, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold him, and not another. It's not merely, I will get my stuff back. He doesn't care about his stuff. He doesn't mention his stuff. It's not even, I will be proven right, although he wants to be vindicated. Job's deepest hope at this point is a personal encounter with God on the other side of death. Later in Job 42, Job says, I had heard of you by the hearing of my ear, but now my eye sees you. Isn't that something? I had heard of you by the hearing of my ear, but now my eye sees you. It's incredible. So this book here is moving beyond Job's current situation, and he's perceiving something way beyond. You see, when pain has done its work in our lives, this is where it lands us. It lands us in that perfect place of revelation. When everything else has been stripped away from us, we're in a whole different place. We're living on an whole different latitude, and we have an whole different understanding of God. Psalm 16:11, the psalmist wrote, in your presence there is fullness of joy. And yet in this despair that Job is in, Job has come to that place where joy is beginning to emerge in his life as he understands he has come to the true knowledge of God. And you see, the deepest biblical hope is not escape from pain or discomfort. It is being received by God. That's our deepest biblical hope, is at the end of the day, God will welcome us. God will embrace us. And this is where Job is right now. He's at this place where he realizes, no, all this don't mean anything. It never meant anything. I thought it did. But God, my Redeemer, it's all in you. Edwin, help this be more than knowledge, bites of information. May it get rooted in your soul. Because as my soul is informed by this, it changes my perception of everything else. I pray God will grant you a great week. And we come back next week to go into part 5. We're going to dive into the concluding part of this study together.
Thanks for joining us today on Encountering the Divine. As we continue through the book of Job, our prayer is that these conversations help you trust God even in the waiting, the questions, and the hard places of life. If this episode encouraged you, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at FCCYMM. If you'd like to connect with Edwin, you can email edwinrhoda@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this ministry, visit familychristiancenter.org/giving.